Hey everybody, David Ellefson here from Megadeth. We are hanging out with Heavy Demons.
So, dear Dave, bass story. Which is the whole idea and concept behind this event, and what shall the fans find in it?
Basically to tell stories. People can come to the big Megadeth shows, to YouTube, and see the concert. And I perform a little bit. I play, obviously. But there's such a great story behind the songs, about how the songs were created, the events that were happening around the songs, that it's more than just the music, and especially in a band like Megadeth, because it's a real rock and roll band, and there's so much more that goes on. So bass story is a way to make it in an intimate setting where you can actually tell a story.
Interact.
Yeah, and also do Q&A. I actually like to hear the stories from the fans, because they've got better stories, I think. I've heard my stories many times, so it's fun to hear them tell their stories and ask questions and even do some requests. And then in the case of tonight, I'm going to bring some friends up to perform with me, to play, which is fun for them, fun for me. And I kind of build a band on stage. It starts with me, and then I bring the band out, and then the singer, and then we just sort of create a band on stage.
Yeah, and what can you tell us about the genesis, the evolution, and the future plans of the EMP Label Group?
You know, as long as there's records to put out, we'll keep doing it. I mean, it started with me just having sort of an outlet for my own music production, and it still is that. But then we realized, there's a lot of other albums that we can put out for our friends, like Doyle, Mark Slaughter, Autograph. These guys are legacy artists. We grew up together. And they're still making great music, and I figure if there's a way that I can help them to continue to put their albums out, then I have the channel and the stream to do that.
Do you find it more difficult rather than the past to promote in this weird digital era?
Yeah, well, it's funny because digital, it all works digitally. It's funny that it all fans buy or listen to things digitally. I still buy everything. I buy everything on iTunes because I still like to have it on my phone. Usually I listen to music when I'm flying, when I'm traveling, and then I'll buy vinyl just because it looks cool. But I usually don't listen to it because I hate the way vinyl sounds. It sounds like shit. I never liked it. I was actually glad when digital came. That one there. But, I find, most artists, they have still the merchandise booth, and fans go to buy things. And sometimes even if a CD and a vinyl is just a place to put a signature, it's a great memorabilia piece to take home. Yeah.
And what can you tell us about your coffee adventure in the last few years?
It's been great. In fact, off camera, we happen to have the bag right here. So, which is actually this is what me and Frank Bello, we just rolled this out, our Altitudes and Attitude, because we do these signature roasts, and it started with our roast in peace coffee, and then we expanded it from there. And the artist roasts are cool. We do one for Eddie from Twisted Sister, Queensryche, Skid Row. So we, again, kind of like the record label for my friends. It's just, for some people, this is just a place to put a signature, sign your name on it. Other times, people really like coffee and they want to take it home and have it. And what I've learned in Europe is that people don't have coffee grinders. So this is whole bean. And most of the time, it's I find that when it's ground, that it sells better because in America, we all seem to have coffee grinders because it's just a part of how we do it. But over here in Europe, most people don't. So, certain countries. So to have it in the already ground version is better. It sells better for the fans.
Yeah, and either with the bass story events and your gigs with Megadeth, do you find any differences between the American and the European audiences?
Yeah, I mean, and even in Europe, it's different. The UK has one style. Scandinavia is a different style. When you go to the Eastern countries, let's say even Russia, Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, they're a different style. Certainly Italy is wonderful, and same with Greece. So I find the further south you go, the little rowdier it gets.
Wilder.
It is. The shows are a little later. Same in Spain and Portugal. So every country has its own different flavor, and that's different than in America, because America, is a very big country, and it has its flavors. But as a country, it tends to be a little more unified, probably because radio influences the whole country, whereas here in Europe, each country has its own real kind of breath and its own lifestyle.
Yeah. And what shall the fans expect from the new Megadeth release? I mean, similarities or differences with, Dystopia?
I would say Dystopia is probably the good benchmark for it. We realized with that album that had all the proper ingredients that the fans like to hear. Fast stuff, mid-tempo stuff, even some slower things like Poison Shadows. That seemed to hit the mark. Dystopia did.
Yeah. And talking about the wildest, days of Megadeth and excesses, do you regret anything, or
No,
do you think it's part of your?
It's all part of it. It's all part of the story,
Yeah.
And and again, that's
Your
who we
life
were.
with death.
That's who we were. Yeah, and it's funny. I actually just today finished the final edit of my new book.
Okay.
More Life with Death. More Life with Death, right? And it's fun to read those old stories. In fact, I've got a lot of people, my friends who I grew up with, who moved to Los Angeles with me, and when we started Megadeth, they've got funny stories, which I like, because it's kind of like base story. I tell some of the stories, I let the fans tell some of the stories, and it's a fun way, I think, in a book to really get the full color of what it is by having my friends be part of it and tell their side of the story.
And here in Italy, but all over the world, there is a bunch of amazing young thrash metal bands, very technical, and which advices would you give them to them still in this weird digital era? Because
I think the thing with thrash, there's a lot of great thrash bands. They really have captured the spirit of the earliest days of thrash. I think probably the one thing with the guitar players that shred, and maybe some of the YouTube drummers, just remember that it isn't just about the notes. It's about the heart behind it. There was back in that day when we were doing these early records, there was a real, it was a combination of punk rock, heavy metal, even, California and Venice Beach had this sort of surf punk, like Suicidal Tendencies. They had the Black Flag, and there's a certain style. All those elements were coming together, and that's really what you hear on there. And so I always say to musicians, don't just emulate what we did. Like, be who you are. The world wants to hear who you are and your representation. There's already a Megadeth, so we don't need another one. But I do like when the young fans are influenced by what we do, and they come up with their own version and their own style of it.
Yeah, and what kind of music do you listen to when you're not working on your music?
I listen to a lot of stuff. The album that I've been listening to a lot, that my friend Andy turned me on to, Andrea Martingelli, who's playing with me tonight, fellow Italian from Verona. He turned me on to that Emigrate album, which is Richard Krauss from Rammstein. Love that album. I listen to most of my music when I'm flying, and I've been listening to that album almost every day for the last couple of weeks, and it's just fantastic, man. It doesn't sound like Rammstein, yet you can tell he's the heart and soul of a lot of the Rammstein sound. So I love that. Of course, I love Ghost. Mark Morton from Lamb of God just put a new album out, and I played on a couple of tracks on that album. And I'm going to jump up and do a little guest appearance with him back in Phoenix when I get home next week. So I'm listening to that. With Metal Allegiance, we have 4 shows coming up in the United States in April. So I'm going back and listening to things by my friends Exodus. I'm listening to some of their stuff because we have a big show in San Francisco that we're going to do around the rollout of the new movie Murder in the Front Row, which again is an Exodus lyric. So it's fun to have stuff to listen to for fun, and then I listen to a lot of music kind of for my profession, because I play with a lot of people, and it's good. It keeps my chops up, and you know, always kind of on top of how how my friends play too.
Yeah.
Mm.
And which final message and greeting would you send out to the Italian fans of Dave and Megadeth?
Ciao Bella, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Of course. Thank you very
Yes,
much, Mr. Nate.